Aging gracefully. That's my term for how we can live our lives in a way that perhaps we can be healthier, perhaps we can live longer, and perhaps we can have a little bit of fun because we're healthier and living longer. So there's an aging process, as we know, and each year after about age 40, about 1% per year, we lose functions of so many of our organs, like our bone strength, our muscle size and strength, our metabolic activities, our cognitive activities. This is just what's normal, but we can slow the process down. Can't stop it. We can slow it down with things we can do in our lifestyles and our behaviors. Things like a good, healthy diet, like adequate exercise, like reducing our stress. Most of us have a lot of chronic stress. Certainly not smoking. And all those also for our cognitive activities add in intellectual challenges and add in social engagement, because as humans we need that. There are 5 areas in the country that are called, in the world I should say, called blue zones. And those areas are Okinawa, Sardinia, part of Sardinia, a Greek island, an area in Southern California near Loma Linda, and a peninsula in Costa Rica. And what's interesting about them is that they have a high prevalence of people living to 100 and beyond. And they're living healthy to 100 and beyond. So what is it about them? What makes them so unusual? Well, there are some characteristics, but we don't know that these are the reasons. Nevertheless, they eat largely a plant-based diet, but they eat meat and fish and so on whenever they want. They have constant exercise. It's just part of daily life. They're not in the car all the time. They're not sitting behind the computer. They're out tending to their sheep or their goats. They're walking to the grocery store. They're walking to church, whatever they may be doing. But they're out and moving. They seem to have an ability to be resilient, to have a low stress level. The level kind of roll off their backs. And they have this sense of a purpose to life, Nothing necessarily fancy. It may just be, I'm going to tend to my garden, but there is a real sense of purpose in life. Now, why do we age? Well, the short answer, of course, is we don't really know, but there's a lot of work going on, and there's some areas that are being looked at pretty intensively. We've talked about them in earlier videos, the shortening of the telomeres, the effect on the DNA because it's winding, it gets tighter or looser. Epigenetic changes, that's the changes outside but attached to the DNA, which affects how genes are expressed or not. Free radicals that are damaging parts of the cell. All of these are parts of the theories, all are being studied, but in the end we don't really know just what it is that allows us to go through this aging process, the aging process that most of us would like to avoid to some degree. There is this thing called the longevity dividend, the idea that if we could slow down the aging process, maybe just by our lifestyle activities, we would not only live longer, but we would live healthier. And that, of course, would save some money in healthcare costs, but also mean that we'd have more opportunity to just enjoy life and have fun. Brings us then, though, to certainly we know for sure that our lifestyle changes can impact our aging. But of course, everybody would like a pill. And so there's a lot of studies going on. Resveratrol, that substance found in red wine, has been studied pretty intensively. There should be some new news about that in the next few years. The idea of taking blood or plasma from a young person, giving it to an old person, and seeing if that will reverse some of the aging activities. It works in mice. There's a drug called metformin, which is used for diabetes. It's a very popular, highly used drug. There is some suggestions, again in animal studies, that it will have an effect. And so a big trial is coming up of 3,000 people, placebo versus metformin, to see what happens. These will be people 70 to 80 years old, and we'll see what their aging, how they age after they start these drugs. Another drug called rapamycin, which maybe is more effective than metformin, but it also has a lot of side effects. But then we come to the idea of, is there a fountain of youth? People have been looking for it for years. I mentioned Gilgamesh before, but we know that the Spanish conquistadors looked for the fountain of youth here. Couldn't find it. But the thing that's being studied in this regard is what's called telomere reconstitution. Again, that little end on the end of the chromosome. It gets shorter each cell division, and once it gets short enough, the cell dies. So can we push it and make it go the other way? And there is some, again, evidence that shows that that can be done. And at least one human having been studied, that the telomeres did get longer. Whether that will mean the person lives longer is another question. But what we can say is that science is advancing rapidly. Interest in aging has accelerated, and the pharmaceutical industry will certainly want to pay more attention. National Institutes of Health is granting more dollars toward aging research. And the FDA is accepting that aging, although not a disease, is something that should be studied and that the pharmaceutical companies can see a potential profit motive, which is just fine. So I think in the next few years, we're going to see a lot of advancement of the basic science of aging, and with that, how we can all live a little longer, a little healthier, gracefully. Thank you very much.